Language. Like I said, it was very difficult for me in the beginning to speak Spanish, but I got it down after that really quickly, I believe. And I can definitely just tell you that part of it, and a huge part of it, was reading the Book of Mormon in Spanish. I read it one verse in Spanish, and I read one verse in English, because I would see what I could understand in Spanish, and then whatever I didn't understand, I could read it in English. But then I did that. I read the whole Book of Mormon like that. And people, everybody can find their own system that works out, but reading the Book of Mormon from the front page to the last page, you will learn the language. We have a promise that we will, and I can attest to that. And the other thing is doing part of what I didn't do is speak it. There's 4 parts of the language. There's the speaking, there's the understanding, there's the reading and the writing. And those come separately. Although it doesn't sound like it makes sense, it really does. If you want to learn how to speak Spanish, you have to speak it. If you want to learn how to understand Spanish, you have to listen. You have to try to understand. If you want to read it, you got to read it. If you want to write it, you got to write it. And then that's how it goes. Like the application is how it is. Because there's lots of Hispanic missionaries I met that they understood English perfectly, but they couldn't speak it because they weren't used to speaking it, but they were used to hearing it from their companions. And so it's really, you have to, if you want to speak Spanish, you have to speak it. If you want to understand Spanish, you have to listen. And like I said, there's a lot of slang. So you have to learn the slang, but I really suggest trying to learn the actual word as well, just so that you're not coming back speaking a type of Spanish that no one understands. So have that understand that difference between those, but use what's best for the person to understand. Also, I have met missionaries like this, where they get to the end of their mission, basically, and their Spanish is just so little. And you think, well, why? They spent their whole mission, and then other people go, well, it's just because the Lord didn't give them the gift of tongues. And I guess that's part of it's true. But most of those missionaries that I've met, they got to a certain point, and then they didn't want to try anymore. They said, I speak enough to be understood, and I understand them. And they don't try anymore. They get back, they say the same phrases every day, and they don't try to excel. And they're content where they are. And I think you should never, bash on yourself, I'm never learning this language. You should obviously, be, amazed by yourself, how much you can speak. But don't ever be content with the amount that you can speak and say that's enough. I know sufficient. It's never enough, because my MTC mission president said we're never going to be as fluent in our second language as our first language, because how many years do we have experience of speaking English? I have, I think, I can't remember when I started speaking, but I guess we're saying 18 years, 19 years. How many years do I have speaking Spanish? Understandable Spanish, maybe over a year. That's a huge difference. So there's always room for improvement on the language we're learning. And we have to keep trying and keep excelling, even if it's just one word a day. One word a day is 365 words in a year. That's really amazing. And with your grammar, there's complicated grammar in Spanish. Focus on the grammar you want to learn at the time. And when you get that down, try to get more grammar. Focus on present tense. When you get present tense down, get past tense. Then get future tense. And you just go down the line, figuring out those complicated until you get to the complicated grammar. And you will speak very, very good Spanish. just by taking it at your pace and the way you learn, but always striving for improvement. Because people will learn at different speeds, and that we shouldn't be comparing. We should never compare our Spanish with someone else's Spanish. That's a bad idea. But looking at where our Spanish is and seeing how much more we can improve for ourselves so that we can help the people we're teaching, and so we can be better servants of the Lord. There's lots of common phrases you're going to hear. There's certain ones, and you'll have to learn those, that for other cultures are offensive. So coming back, I had to learn certain phrases that I said, my whole mission, I can't say here because it's offensive. Like specifically where I live, there's lots of Mexicans, and that phrase, the certain phrase I would say all the time is very offensive to Mexicans. And so we have to be conscious of that, the cultural differences too. And as you go, there's missionaries from all over, like from different countries as well. And you can ask them, hey, like what phrases here are offensive to according to your country, and get those understood. But common phrases you're going to hear, especially mission phrases, I guess we could go into that. They're going to say the word baggy. And baggy means, I guess the best English word is chunky. So you're thinking about home, you're thinking about going home. And that's just a common phrase that comes out of everybody's mouth because, like, every missionary is thinking about home at least one point or another. And on P-Day, you're writing your family. So that phrase will come out a lot. They'll say baggy. There's books that missionaries pass around and people can write and like put down their information for after the mission. And those are also called baggies. I have no clue why that's the same word, but that's what they call baggies. Another missionary term is snake. And that's if someone has a crush on a missionary. They'll say that person is a snake. Or it can go the other way, that maybe they're joking around saying the missionary has a crush on this person. They'll call them a snake. It comes from the English word, but they just spell it different. So that's a common missionary phrase they have down there, that the common person doesn't actually understand. It's just a missionary term. But I guess like other things is like they'll say super pilas, which is like super awesome. Like they just are really great missionaries or really great person, or like if they call an investigator super pilas, it's because this investigator is like golden. They'll say things like se la pica, which is a phrase for Mexicans that is offensive. In El Salvador it is not. And you'll hear it a lot. It just means you're cocky. You're full of it. You're going to hear that a lot amongst missionaries. They'll say, se la pica. And then as you go, like you'll start learning things. Like when a missionary is finishing their mission, they'll say that they're dying. They'll say, está muerto, or está muriendo. And so because of that, their last companion, they say that they kill them. So they say, which is, como they'll say, like someone sería, le va a matar, which means like you're going to kill them, which just means that you're their last companion before they go home. But that was just a funny story for me, is that I still understood a little bit of Spanish. My trainer was going home after my training. And so I had people tell that, like, oh, you're going to kill her. And I was like, why would I kill her? I would never kill her. And it was just they were saying that she was finishing her mission with me. And so that's something you might want to learn before you kind of freak out like I did.